Polly Melton loved the mountains, and in 1981 it would be the last place anyone would see her.
My theory is, and it's simply a theory, I have no proof, that she arranged to be met at a crossroad there in the park and be picked up. It was such a shock that she simply disappeared.
If we could just hear something. Decades later, that was still the wish expressed by Polly Melton's family. Not an explanation, not a theory, just a sign that she had been found. Because on September 25, 1981, Thelma Pauline Polly Melton walked ahead of two friends on a trail she knew well. She disappeared from their view. And then, nothing. No confirmed sighting. No confirmed explanation. No remains. And no verified account of where she went. The strangest part? Polly wasn't deep in some unknown corner of the Smokies. She was on the Deep Creek Trail, with people who had been walking with her only moments earlier. So ask yourself this: how does a 58-year-old woman disappear from a familiar trail while two people are still close enough to watch her walk away? And perhaps the more disturbing question is this: what happened in the few moments between Polly disappearing around that bend and the realization that she was never coming back? Before we examine the mystery, we need to understand who Polly Melton was. The National Park Service identifies her as Thelma Pauline Polly Melton. She was 58 years old when she disappeared. The NPS describes her as approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall, around 180 pounds, with brown eyes and red hair. She wore eyeglasses, and unlike a person encountering the Smokies for the first time, Polly knew this area very well. The Deep Creek area had been part of her life for years. She and her husband, Robert Bob Melton, spent time seasonally in the area, while their winter home was in Jacksonville, Florida. Her connection to the region went even deeper through her family. Contemporary reporting and later accounts place her family within a long-established seasonal community near Deep Creek. That matters, because one of the easiest explanations for a wilderness disappearance is simply, she got lost. But Polly wasn't a stranger to this landscape. She had walked in this area repeatedly. She knew the trails. She knew the campground. She knew the creek. And on September 25, 1981, she wasn't even hiking alone. She was with two friends, Trula Gudger and Pauline Red Cannon. That afternoon was supposed to be routine. A walk, a familiar trail, then back to camp. Nothing about that plan sounds like the beginning of a disappearance that would remain unresolved for more than 4 decades. Yet, that's exactly what happened. September 25th was a Friday. Polly was staying in the Deep Creek area with Bob. Later accounts indicate that she had been a regular volunteer at the Bryson City Presbyterian Church Nutrition Center, where she helped provide meals. But that Friday she did something unusual. She did not report for her expected volunteer duties. That detail would become interesting only after she disappeared. At the time, it probably seemed insignificant. People change their plans. People skip work. People decide to spend an afternoon differently. Nobody could have known that one small deviation from her normal routine would later become part of a much larger puzzle. There was another unusual detail. According to later reporting, Polly had used the telephone at the nutrition center the previous day. Those calls could not be traced, and investigators could not establish who she had spoken with. That fact is worth presenting carefully. It does not prove that Polly was arranging to disappear. It does not prove she was communicating with a secret companion. And it does not establish a connection between those calls and what happened the next afternoon. It is simply an unexplained event that occurred shortly before she vanished. And that's the difference between evidence and theory. At Vanished in the Wild, we need to keep that line clear. Because once a person disappears, ordinary events can suddenly begin to look suspicious. A missed volunteer shift becomes a clue. A phone call becomes a clue. A change in walking speed becomes a clue. A conversation becomes a clue. But a clue only becomes meaningful when evidence establishes what it actually means. And in Polly's case, several of these details remain unresolved. That afternoon, Polly joined Trula Gudger and Pauline Cannon for a walk along Deep Creek Trail. This was familiar territory. They weren't heading into an unexplored wilderness. The trail followed Deep Creek through the North Carolina side of the Great Smoky Mountains. The women had made walks like this before. According to contemporary reporting summarized in the source material, the three had been friends for years. And that detail becomes important when we reach the moment Polly disappeared. Because there was no obvious separation. No argument that investigators could establish. No confirmed emergency. No reported scream. No known confrontation. Instead, Polly simply began moving ahead. The women noticed the change. And according to accounts from her companions, she eventually moved far enough ahead that they called out to her. She looked back and continued. That would be the last confirmed sighting of Thelma Pauline Melton. Think about how ordinary that moment must have felt. Two friends watching another friend walk ahead. Nobody reaches for a camera. Nobody writes down the time. Nobody thinks, this is the last time I'm going to see her. They had no reason to. Polly was ahead of them. They expected to catch up. Or they expected to find her waiting at the campground. Instead, she disappeared from sight. The NPS official case description reduces the critical moment to a simple fact. Polly's companions lost sight of her as she walked ahead at a faster pace. That's the official anchor point of this entire case. Everything that follows begins there. Imagine standing on that trail in 1981. You are walking with two friends. One of them is ahead. You lose sight of her around a bend. You keep walking. You expect her to be waiting. But she's not. You reach the campground. Still nothing. Bob Melton was there. But he hadn't seen Polly return. Now the situation changes completely. This isn't someone taking a longer walk. This isn't someone stopping to rest. This is a missing person. Trula and Red began retracing their route. They searched the area. They looked for Polly. They asked other people whether they had seen her. But no one could provide the answer they needed. Where was she? By approximately 6 p.m., Polly was reported missing to a park ranger. The NPS records her disappearance date as September 25, 1981. And from that point forward, the Great Smoky Mountains became the center of a search for a woman who seemed to have simply slipped out of the landscape. The response expanded. Searchers examined the area around Deep Creek Trail and surrounding terrain. Dogs were used. Foot teams searched. The investigation examined possible routes Polly could have taken. But the problem was immediate. There was no clear direction to follow. The official NPS record doesn't say that Polly was found injured. It doesn't say that she was located somewhere off the trail. It doesn't say that investigators discovered evidence establishing an accident. It simply says that her companions lost sight of her as she moved ahead, and she remains missing. Contemporary reporting adds more detail to the search effort. Search dogs were brought in during the early days. Later, the search expanded to include additional personnel and organizations. Yet the dogs did not establish a confirmed trail leading investigators to Polly. One later account describes a dog showing interest around a fallen tree. But that did not produce a confirmed route or location for Polly. And that distinction matters. A dog reacting to an area is not the same thing as proof that a missing person was there at a particular time. It may be useful. It may be suggestive. But it isn't an answer. By early October, investigators were increasingly considering the possibility that Polly was no longer inside the park. And that created a completely different question. If Polly had not been found in the area where she disappeared, had she actually left the park? This is where Polly's case becomes psychologically fascinating. There are two competing assumptions. The first is, Polly died somewhere in the wilderness. The second is, Polly left the area voluntarily or with someone's assistance. Both possibilities have problems. If she became lost or suffered a medical emergency, why wasn't she found? She was familiar with the area. If she left intentionally, why did she apparently leave without telling the people closest to her? And if another person was involved, who was that person? The danger in a case like this is that we desperately want one explanation, but the evidence doesn't necessarily give us one. So instead of asking, "What do you think happened?" we should ask something more useful. Which explanation requires the fewest assumptions? That's the question investigators, journalists, and researchers should keep returning to. There is another part of the story that needs careful handling. Polly had health problems. Contemporary accounts describe high blood pressure and recurring nausea. She was also a heavy smoker. Her physical condition became relevant to the possibility that she could have experienced a medical problem while walking. Her sister, Kit Postel, later expressed concern that Polly might have become confused or incapacitated. Another friend, Trula Gudger, reportedly believed Polly could have suffered a mental or medical crisis. But those are possibilities. They are not findings. There is no NPS conclusion saying, Polly suffered a medical emergency. There is no confirmed recovery location that would allow investigators to reconstruct such an event. And because Polly's remains have never been located, we cannot retroactively diagnose what happened to her. That is why Vanished in the Wild should avoid saying things like, Polly suffered an aneurysm, or Polly wandered off because of her medication, unless documentation establishes it. We can say, a medical emergency was one possibility considered by people close to the case. That's responsible storytelling. And sometimes, uncertainty is more compelling than pretending we have an answer. Now return to the day before Polly disappeared. The phone, the volunteer center, the unexplained calls. This is where the story almost seems to demand a conclusion. Who was she calling? Was she making arrangements? Was she speaking with someone she knew? Was it completely unrelated? We don't know, and that last answer may be frustrating. But it's the honest answer. Later accounts connected the calls with theories that Polly may have planned to leave. But the calls themselves don't establish that. They could have been about something ordinary. They could have involved someone investigators never identified. Or they could have had nothing whatsoever to do with her disappearance. This is exactly the kind of detail that can transform a documentary into misinformation if handled carelessly. So let's leave the question open. Who did Polly call? And why did investigators never establish the answer? Then there was another story. A man. According to later accounts, Polly's friends had teased her about a man connected to the nutrition center. Her pastor, Tom Harris, later said he believed Polly may have been involved in an extramarital relationship. But here's the important part. There is no verified identification of that supposed man in the NPS record. And the existence of a suspected relationship does not establish that Polly disappeared to be with him. It doesn't establish that he picked her up. It doesn't establish that he was waiting somewhere near the trail. And it certainly doesn't establish that he harmed her. This is one of the biggest places where a mystery can become distorted. Possibility gets repeated. Then someone presents the possibility as a theory. Another person repeats the theory. Eventually the theory starts sounding like a fact. We're not going to do that. We'll say exactly what can be supported. Tom Harris made claims about Polly's emotional life. Those claims became part of later theories about her disappearance. But they remain claims, not proof. Another detail has circulated repeatedly. Valium. Some accounts have claimed that a bottle belonging to Bob was missing after Polly disappeared. But this is precisely where our research has to slow down. The second transcript you supplied specifically examined that claim and found a problem. The available contemporary reporting it discussed indicates that Polly herself had a Valium prescription, while the supposed missing bottle belonging to Bob is not clearly supported by the same documentation. That means we should not present Bob's missing Valium bottle as an established fact. Instead, Polly had previously been prescribed Valium. Her medication history became part of later speculation about her mental or physical condition. But the evidence does not allow us to conclude that she took Valium immediately before disappearing. And we certainly cannot use medication as proof of suicide. That distinction is crucial, because once you say, her medication disappeared, therefore she overdosed, you've moved from evidence into invention. And that's exactly what this channel is supposed to avoid. Now we reach the theory that has probably attracted the most attention. Perhaps Polly left voluntarily. Perhaps she had made plans. Perhaps someone was waiting for her. Perhaps the unexplained phone calls were connected. Perhaps the decision not to volunteer that Friday was part of the same plan. Perhaps she simply used the hike as an opportunity to separate herself from her friends. It sounds possible. But then the questions begin. Why leave without telling Bob? Why disappear from the lives of people who knew her? Why leave behind circumstances that would trigger a missing person search? And what happened afterward? Because if Polly successfully left, she left an extraordinary silence behind her. No confirmed communication with family. No confirmed new life. No confirmed destination. No confirmed identity of a person who helped her, and no definitive proof that the person who later cashed a check in her name was Polly. That is a major problem for the voluntary disappearance theory. It doesn't make the theory impossible. It makes it unproven. Months later, another strange detail surfaced. A check made out to Polly was cashed in Birmingham, Alabama. This immediately raises the obvious question: was Polly alive? But again, we have to resist the temptation to jump. The check was investigated. The person who cashed it was not definitively identified. And the existence of a financial transaction in Polly's name doesn't automatically establish that Polly herself appeared at the bank. Could have been her. Could have been someone else. Later accounts have discussed whether the signature looked like Polly's.
And they've never proved one way or the other if it was her handwriting. And my theory is that it was Polly.
But that still does not establish who actually presented the check. The Birmingham lead therefore becomes something fascinating but frustrating. A possible sign that Polly was alive after September 25th, without becoming proof that she was. And that distinction changes everything. Because if Polly was alive after the disappearance, then the case becomes one of intentional disappearance, abduction, or assistance from another person. But if someone else used her name, then the check tells us almost nothing about her fate. The lead was investigated. It did not produce a confirmed answer, and Polly remained missing. Perhaps the most human part of this case is what happened after the search. The authorities could stop searching an area. They could form an investigative conclusion. They could say they believed Polly was no longer in the park. But her family still had to live with the uncertainty. Later reporting describes family members questioning whether enough had been done. Her sister Kit remained convinced that Polly might still have been somewhere in the woods. That doesn't prove Polly was there, but it tells us something important about the human cost of an unresolved disappearance. For investigators, a case can become inactive. For a family, it doesn't. Every birthday becomes a question. Every unidentified body becomes a possibility. Every phone call becomes a moment of hope. And every year that passes makes the possibility of an answer feel smaller. Yet it never becomes completely zero. So let's put the major possibilities on the table. Possibility 1. Accidental death or medical emergency. Polly knew the area, but familiarity doesn't make a person immune to injury. A fall, a sudden medical crisis, disorientation, an unexpected event away from the trail. Any of these could theoretically result in a missing person. The problem is the absence of a confirmed recovery. Possibility 2. Voluntary disappearance. The unexplained phone calls, the missed volunteer commitment, the later claims about her personal life, the Birmingham check. All of these have been used to support the idea, but none independently proves it. And collectively, they still leave enormous unanswered questions. Possibility 3. Foul play. Someone could theoretically have encountered Polly after she separated from her friends. But there is no confirmed perpetrator, no confirmed struggle, no confirmed crime scene, no recovered remains, and no established evidence showing who could have taken her. So again, possible? Yes. Proven? No. And now we come back to the moment that started everything. Polly walking ahead, her friends behind her, a bend, a rise, a few moments, then she was gone. That's what makes this case so difficult. There isn't a dramatic final photograph. There isn't a known confrontation. There isn't a confirmed final message. There isn't even a confirmed explanation for why she disappeared. There is simply a gap. A tiny gap in time. A gap that became 40 years. Then 41. 42. More than 4 decades. And the National Park Service still lists Thelma Pauline Polly Melton among its cold cases. The official record remains brutally simple. She was last seen hiking Deep Creek Trail. Her companions lost sight of her. She has never been located. So I want you to forget the theories for a moment. Forget the mysterious phone calls. Forget the check. Forget the rumors. Forget everything people have said over the decades. Focus only on the verified moment. Polly was walking with 2 people. She moved ahead. They lost sight of her. And she never came back. What do you think is the single most important question investigators should have answered that afternoon? Was it, who saw Polly after her friends lost sight of her? Was it, where could she realistically have gone from that point? Or was it something else entirely? And here's the question I keep coming back to. If Polly really left the park voluntarily, why has no reliable trace of her life ever been confirmed afterward? But if she didn't leave, where did she go? The National Park Service still lists her as missing. And somewhere between that trail, that bend, and the moment her friends realized she wasn't at the campground, the answer may still be waiting. This is Vanished in the Wild. We follow the cases through the records, the ranger reports, the contemporary reporting, the documented statements, and most importantly, we separate what we know from what we only think we know. Because sometimes the most haunting mystery isn't what happened. It's how little we can prove about what happened. Thelma Polly Melton disappeared on September 25, 1981. And as of today, she has never been found. More than 4 decades later, she has never been found. If you have information that could help investigators understand what happened to Polly Melton, you can contact the National Park Service Investigative Services branch at 888-653-0009. You can also submit information through the NPS online tip form, and you don't have to identify yourself. The link is in the description below. But now, I want to hear from you. What do you think happened to Polly? Did she suffer a medical emergency somewhere beyond the trail? Did she leave the area voluntarily? Or do you believe someone else was involved? And most importantly, what is the one unanswered question in this case that you think deserves another look? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you have information that could genuinely help investigators, don't post sensitive details publicly. Send them directly to the NPS. If this case left you with questions, take a look around the channel. Here on Vanished in the Wild, we investigate other mysterious disappearances from America's national parks, forests, and wilderness areas. Polly Melton isn't the only person who vanished without an answer. There are more cases waiting to be uncovered, more trails where someone disappeared, more unanswered questions, and more stories where the official record still leaves us wondering, what really happened? So if you're interested in these unexplained wilderness disappearances, there's plenty more to explore here on Vanished in the Wild. And you never know, the next case might be even more mysterious than this one. Until next time, stay on the trail.